been talking about healthy family. So this is what we're doing each week. The goal is not to guilt us, but to help inspire us to think what a healthy Christian family looks like. So this is what it is. This is the goal. A healthy Christian family, as I see on the screen here, all types of families, is one that meets the physical, emotional, and social needs of its members according to the teaching of Jesus. So he's how and why we do what we do. Each person feels loved and respected, right? They have a strong sense of connection, bondedness, and belonging. They feel part of the family, the group. And they can handle challenges well. They have a strong sense of resilience. So when challenges and struggles come, they're able to process that trauma or that struggle together, and they move on together as a family unit. So that's our goal. Every week, I'm going to keep reading that every week through all the sermon series as we do. Last week, I talked about the three major non-negotiables, as I see, as a healthy Christian marriage, because that's ground zero is healthy Christian marriage. Remember that? Those who've been before, hopefully this sounds familiar. Last week, I talked about three fundamental non-negotiables. That is safety, complete safety, physical safety, emotional safety, mental safety, period. It's a non-negotiable of a healthy Christian marriage. 2, intimate romantic fidelity, that you're only sexually active in any way, shape, form, or fashion with one person. That's a non-negotiable. And 3, that they have agape love. That is to say, they have a selfless, sacrificial love for the good of the person, for the good of. Eros love is erotic love. That's romantic love. I don't think that's a non-negotiable of a healthy Christian marriage. I don't think so. I think that sometimes that can come and go, but agape cannot go. So today I want to focus the next few weeks, in fact, on what I consider to be some key features of a healthy Christian marriage. So these are the non-negotiables. But when you start meeting healthy Christian marriages, they have some things in common. Now, on the one hand, I've met some really healthy Christian marriages, and that I seek to emulate, and I learn from them. I also learn from people who do it horribly well. I mean horrible. And so through people I've met through numerous, 15, 20 plus or whatever years of counseling couples, and these are couples of divorce is imminent or they've gone through it, and they themselves have taught me, or I have taught them, this is where the big breakdown was. So what I want to do is, of all the things we could cover, I want to cover the things I encounter the most in all my experience with counseling couples. So before I do that, when a recent study asked thousands of people, why did you get divorced? Why get divorced? The number one reason, 3 out of 4 people said because there's just a lack of commitment. In fact, that beat infidelity. They just weren't committed, didn't want to be committed. In fact, 72% said they didn't really understand there was commitment involved in marriage before they got married.
That's ridiculous. Sorry.
Think about that for a second. That's 3 out of 4 people. Like, I really didn't know what I was getting into. I didn't know I really had to be committed that much. Now, let's be honest, the older couples in this room go, give me a break. My grandparents stayed married through the Depression. Like, I'll kill you, but we're not getting divorced. I mean, there's things, and part of that's because of guilt, particularly in Baptist life. There's a comedian used to say, you're better off murdering, coming out with a testimony than getting divorced, because they'll never forgive you. But the point is, there's a degree to which commitment was a long term. But today it's different. Today is different. And I'm not making fun of them, but I mean, it's just different. So there's a lack of commitment is a number one thing. And I have found it to be true in my own life. That is to say, not personally, but in my own counseling, this lack of commitment is a really big deal. So the very first fundamental healthy feature, a feature of a healthy Christian couple, is what I do in every one of my premarital counseling. This is always number one, ground zero when it comes to that, and it's this. A healthy Christian marriage is when you are committed to your spouse, not a feeling about your spouse. You're committed to your what? Say it, spouse, not a feeling about your spouse. I cannot tell you how fundamental this is. I can't articulate it well. I'm not a poet. What I know is this is ground zero. And so in a biblical worldview, if you use Greek terms, you would say the first is you have agape, the second is eros. And I've sent multiple studies over, and I had a bunch of studies I was going to nerd out with, but anyway, a bunch of studies demonstrate that over 50% of the time they get divorced because they say, I fell out of love. Right? We don't know what happened, we just fell out of love. And and you've all heard that before, and maybe even yourself have said it before. The problem with that is, of course, several things, but one is in the Christian worldview, it means that you're a slave of feelings. These feelings just come and go, and I just got to be a slave to them. I'm going to come back to that later about that. But a healthy Christian couple is where both people are committed to the person and to the marriage, not a feeling about the marriage. In our day today, I mean, just be honest, let's just be, not everybody, right? But in generalities, this is true. If I were to go do a poll at Walmart and Solomon's or whatever and ask people what really drives you, most people would probably say, well, I mean, if I had to choose between your moods or your will, they would say, well, my moods, typically. I want to have fun. My moods can go up and down, but that's just how it is in life, right? We just need to follow them. And see, I have seen that kind of mindset that what we do is chase how we feel. We've chased the rush. We chase the thrill. And so people they start dating typically, if they even date. Usually sometimes it starts with getting drunk, having sex, having children, and then you get married, if you even do that. But let's say it's a normal kind of thing where you date a person, you kind of fall in love, and you get infatuated, all kinds of chemicals flood your body that helps you attach to a person. Psychologically, what happens is you idealize, and so you see the positive, and it goes up, 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 up. And I can't even think at night, I can't even sleep. All I do is think about them. And she's the best thing since air conditioning. That's hard to say, but I just grow up, and so you idealize and you get infatuated. And so what happens is you're delusional. You're delusional because no one in front of you is Jesus himself, right? So you're only seeing the positive. And then we call that splitting as well. So you only see the positive. When you're about to head to divorce, it's the exact opposite. Divorce is usually when you split the opposite direction, all you see is the negative. They do nothing but annoy me. Everything that they choose too loud. He smells funny. I hate blue shirts. I hate everything. And then here comes Prince Charming at work who just smells a little better and is barely nice to you. And all of a sudden, he's a fresh, cold drink of water. And all of a sudden you think you're riding the waves of moods is what you're doing. And so mature, healthy people realize that's not what we do. We allow infatuation. We allow idealization because that helps you bond with a person. But imagine, as a pastor, I encounter this all the time in the real world, you might say, and that is when people have that same mindset about relationships, the odds are very high they have it about everything, including religion or Christianity. So imagine this is what a lot of people, I think, Kevin, if I picked up their Bible, I'd say, this is what their Bible says. It would say things like this. Then Jesus called the crowd along with his disciples and said to them, if anyone wants to be my follower, he must deny himself, take up his cross, and follow whatever happy feelings you might have about me. Yeah, I'd be crying too, because that's just pathetic. But that's exactly what they believe. In Acts 2, this is what their Bible says. They were devoting themselves to how they felt about the apostles' teachings and to fellowship, to breaking the bread. Just how I felt about it. Or I love what Paul's favorite verse, everyone knows this one. So we must not grow weary in doing good, unless you just don't feel like doing it anymore. For in due time we will reap if we don't give up, unless you really want to. See, no one says this, but this is what I have encountered in many conversations, in books, and podcasts, and lectures, and talks, and blah, blah. And now it's widely popular to have what we call deconstruction in the Christian faith. It is wildly, millions of clicks on YouTube of people who leave the faith. And every single time I watch it, I'm intrigued and I want to hear about it. I want to figure out why a person would abandon their faith. And one book was a former pastor in Texas. Had like 5,000, 15,000 people, whatever. And I think the title of the book is called Goodbye Jesus. It's a big, fat, thick book of why he left. And this is basically it over and over and over. Didn't feel like it. His feelings were hurt. Things didn't go well. He didn't see the power of God the way he wanted to. Not because he found the bones of Jesus. Not because Christianity became false. It's just, his feet. And man, I have total sympathy for that. But I keep thinking of these kind of things. We just follow our moods. Well, this is false, right? I mean, do you understand that's false? It breaks my heart when I meet people at restaurants and whatever, I ask about, do you follow religion, Christianity? I used to go. What happened? Well, then blank happened. It's some painful thing. And, of course, the moment, I'm not there to quote these pretend Bible. The green is made up, of course. But I often think, well, why did you do that? See, if you were committed to Jesus and not feelings about Jesus, you would have stuck in there. So a healthy Christian couple is like that. That even if your spouse doesn't do this, a healthy Christian in the marriage commits to agape love, caring for the good of your partner, unconditionally. Unconditional, like I said last week, unconditionally means there are no features or aspects about it that dictate that I do it. Period. I quoted Kevin last week. I love you and there's nothing you can do about it. Right? That's the definition of agape. That is, it's that, or rather unconditionality. That's the definition of being unconditional. And that's what healthy people do. Now, many of you I know in this room, because I know your stories, and many of you have, maybe you've come from a previous marriage where you didn't experience this. Christians don't wait on their spouse to do this first before they do it. Why is that? Because they're Christian, right? I mean, they're just Christian. Even if your spouse doesn't do this, you are committed to their good. You care for their good unconditionally. If there were a video camera recording your every move in your home, and the world got to see it beyond what really happens with Ring doorbell and stuff like that, but I mean, if people, and you showed them, how proud would you be that in the video recording of you, even if your spouse didn't do it, how proud would you be of the record of it? How selfless and sacrificial and humble are you? Now, I have to say, I want to say this. Believe me, I want to spend so much longer on this, because right now, I had a professor. Let me drop a footnote. Many of you right now are bringing up images of people who were abusive. They cheated on you. All these things. You're saying, Dave, you're telling me I've got to give in and care. I covered that last week. When you violate physical boundaries, physical, emotional, mental safety, when you cheat on I'm not talking about people who left you and they're checked out and are gone, and that is to say now you got to get beat up for their good. What I'm saying is, if you're a Christian, that is not the condition upon which you love a person. You care for their good. But that doesn't mean you put yourself in harm's way. You're not anybody's punching bag. But if you are in a relationship with a person, that's what Christians do. Now, why is that? Because you're committed to the person, not a feeling about a person. I'm committed to my spouse, not how I feel about my spouse. If you've ever been married more than past the honeymoon phenomenal infatuation stage, believe it or not, there's going to be a time you might not like your spouse. Anybody? Have you ever disliked your spouse, married people? You're scared to raise your hand. Some of y'all went, ooh! I mean, it was just. I saw a show the other day of a person who was going through, it was a fictional account of an opioid crisis, and the guy was struggling, and the wife hugs him. She goes, I don't like you right now. And he goes, I love you, and I love you. And then she leaves, and Elaine goes, that's it. I said, you're right. That's marriage. I don't like you right now. Not, I'm divorced. I don't know what happened. The second I got mad at him, snip. That's not what Christians don't do that. They don't do that. They just don't do that. You're committed to the person and the marriage, not. Imagine going into a marriage ceremony on the vows it says, and I've heard people sometimes say, I give my life and death through life through sickness and health unless I don't feel like it. I'm committed to you forever unless I fall out of love. Would you sign that contract? On your wedding day, would you get married to such a person? And that's why most people don't put that in their vows, because it sounds so, silly and ridiculous. And why would you commit to a feeling? What is wrong with you? But that, in essence, is what most people do in a marriage. That's why 3 out of 4 people it says they're not ready for commitment. I'm not ready for that. And that's one of the number one reasons people move in together before marriage. That's why they live together typically. It's because I know I always have an easy out. I can get out real quickly. We broke up. It's not a big deal. We had 5 kids and a home, and we lived together 18 years, but at least I didn't get divorced. There's a little more public stigma with that, which is intriguing to me when in a day where marriage is so disposable that it's still embarrassing to get, that's interesting to me. I mean, if you're not a Christian. If you're a Christian, I understand more, but that's why we don't do that. Christians say, I'm not doing that. When I made a vow with you, does your word mean anything? Does it mean anything at all? So the question is, to what are you committed? If you're married or you want to get married in this our church family watching online, you have to be gut level honest. What am I committed to? Am I committed to how I feel about the person? Is that what you're committed to? Just own it. In fact, if that's true, I'm begging you, please own it and then tell your spouse, I'm not really committed to you. I'm committed to how I feel about you. Sleep well. High five. You too? Have that conversation. Just tell them, if I fall in love with you, I'm out. Just tell them, because that's what's going to happen anyway. Or tell them, I'm committed to you. I'm committed to you. Here's another question to ask. The question is, what's in control of you? Real gut level and honest. What controls you in life? Is it your mood? Is it your feelings? Or is it your will? I'm not that old. I mean, I'm pretty young, but I'm still at an age where I'm encountering more and more as the years go by, people my age and of course younger too. I don't hear this anymore. There are a lot of things that drop out of American parlance. That is our normal vocabulary. When I was younger, you used to hear things like "shame on you." Ever heard that? How many times you heard that lately? Lately, though, you know what I'm saying? Oh, she's like, yeah, I mean, no one. Why? Because you can't be wrong. You can't be guilty. You never say to a person, "You're so judgmental." Oh, who do you think you? I mean, it's horrible. Another thing that people use that I don't hear much anymore at all is, "Well, I made up my mind." Why don't you do? I just made up my mind. You make up your mind when you have different ideas about something and you come to a conclusion based on the evidence. I made up my mind. I made up my mind when I got married. I'm not cheating on my spouse. I made up my mind when I got married that I'm going to care for her until she gives me a reason not to. That is to say, stay married because I'm going to be faithful. I made up my mind that when we got pregnant, I'm going to raise my children where I'm not going to be violent in the home and on and on. I made up my mind a long time ago. I'm never going to rape and pillage and murder and steal. I made up my mind when I was a little kid, I'm never going to lie. And I haven't, and I don't. I'm going to tell the truth at all times. I made up my mind. Does that mean I don't fail? Sure. But I made up my mind to say, that's my life. I'm not doing that. We don't say those things anymore. I made up my mind. Well, marriage is supposed to be one of those places where we say, I made up my mind. That's settled. No, I was drinking a little too much. No, she was really cute. No, you don't understand my childhood. See, I made up my mind about that. But what's in control of you? I think about this when I see it incessantly online and hear stories and whatever. People, they just go to the bar and they come out. It's like we're just a bunch of wild animals with all we have to do is follow our instincts. And so we have all these songs. Sorry, Reba McEntire. Sorry, Jennifer. Follow your heart. Trust your heart. I would never do that. Oh, as above Jesus, I wouldn't do it. See, they're going right now. Someone's heart. No, we pray for them. What are you committed to? You committed to a marriage and a person, or are you committed to feelings? The second major feature of a healthy Christian marriage is this. In a healthy Christian marriage, you take full responsibility, for your own internal and external healthy needs. Now, unless you're incapacitated. When I'm in a coma or I get a bad car wreck, hopefully Elaine will then come to my aid, right? Incapacity means I cannot do it. I don't have the power to do it myself. But in general, I see this all the time. So the first one, I see people getting divorced or about to all the time because their moods have gone awry or they just fell out of love and they go to, boop. The other major reason is because they think it's their job and responsibility to take care of the other person's character deficiencies. And they have profound boundary violations. If a person came and knocked on my door today and said, David, how could you? Could I what? How did you let my car get dirty? That's funny. What's your name? Nice to meet you, Bob. What'd you say? Well, you're really mad? Yes. What are you mad at? My car's dirty. Why'd you let it get dirty? Why don't you wash it, David? That'd be the what? Dude, are you high? What are you smoking? It's your car. Why did you let it get dirty? Because it's your car. It doesn't matter. Yes, it does, in fact. I don't have the moral responsibility to take care of your stuff. I'm not mad at you because you didn't clean my car. No, you're supposed to do that. Why? In what world does that make sense? Okay, we all get that in life. We all understand that in trains. Everyone in this room goes, of course not, of course not. That would never happen. Now take out the word car and put feelings. Put internal needs or health. What do I mean by internal, external needs? Things like external world things, like I'm responsible for my own food, water, shelter, physical shape I'm in, my own behavior. I'm responsible for that stuff. Elaine is not responsible for that. I am. Where's my food, woman? No amen, Bennett. Don't do that. Elaine needs to go in the refrigerator. That's what she should say. I'm hungry. How about that? I'm thirsty. Interesting. Tired of getting wet. Okay. I know where umbrellas are. Go get them. Dummy. I mean, why in the world do you think it's your responsibility? That's exactly what she'd have. What makes you, that's not my car. My whole family's hungry, David. Why don't you come to my house and cook food? What? My internal world, these are is character. My beliefs, that's all in me. My beliefs are my deal. My feelings, my thoughts, my attitude, my own spiritual state. It is my own. The second you get this twisted, you get mad at your spouse when he or she doesn't do it for you. You'll know you are mistaken when you feel resentment toward your spouse because they are not fixing this. Why did you let me be late? Why didn't you wake me up? Why didn't you tell me I was a racist? Why didn't you tell me I wasn't responsible? And I see this almost every time I do couples counseling. At some level, they're not taking ownership of themselves, and they're mad at the other person for not coming and fixing them. Whatever your character. So let me give some examples. Do you have an anger or rage problem? That's your problem, not your spouse's problem. Oh, she just brings it out of me. No, she does not. You have a rage problem. You have a fragile little baby inside of you that bucks up every time you feel threatened, and that is your problem, not your spouse's problem. Are you horrible at talking about your feelings? That's your fault, and it's your problem, not your spouse's problem. Well, if you just ask him how I feel more often, that is your problem. Grow up and learn. Most men are horrible at this. Well, I just expect her to come ask me. She didn't talk about, why don't you go read a book? Go talk to someone. Are you hungry? Yes. Go get your own food. Do you prefer to hold grudges instead of forgive? Yeah, that's your fault. That's your problem. It's not your spouse's problem. Do you have a drinking problem? That's your problem, not your spouse's problem. I mean, period. Is it a porn problem? Any addiction? That's your problem. Well, he just didn't meet my needs. Well, she just let herself go. And that's your problem, not your spouse. Stop blaming everybody else. Do you spend too much money? Are you lazy? Are you not accountable? Do you always late? Are you just an immature baby Christian? Well, if he would just take me to church. Do you still make decisions because you're a past? I mean, I could go on and on. These are all normal problems I see in counseling. Normal issues. All these issues are your responsibility. They are your responsibility. They are your. It's very difficult to claim ownership of our own character deficiencies because it feels bad. We tend to feel guilty for it, particularly shame, and it's so much easier to blame someone else for our own problems. That way you don't have to own it. I don't look how I've got to grow up, and that can be very painful. If you are blessed enough to be in a healthy Christian marriage, the spouse is not there to judge you and condemn you, but to be a safe place. A safe place to be wounded and gracious and loving. Oh, baby, yeah, you do have a problem with that. You are drinking too much. You just are. And I hate that you're struggling with that. And I'm here for you, but you do need to get help. You got to get help right now. That's a deal breaker. It's causing harm. It's wasting the money. Or are you always late? That's why you keep losing jobs. I'm not here to make sure you get up on time. I'm not here to make sure there's food on the table every time you walk in the door. No, I'm not. Well, David, can a spouse ever meet these needs of mine, my external needs, food, shelter, or internal? Can they ever meet it? Yes. If they do, Paul knows this, need versus, can you say it? Treat. Thank you. They did my premarital counseling. There's Paul right there. So I'm kidding. So here's, I need that treat. So there's a dog in his treat in his mouth. So here's how I like to think about it. When a spouse tries to meet one of your healthy, legitimate needs, it's just a treat. It's just a treat. My wife does most of the cooking in our home, and she's great at it, and she serves me, and service my chief love language. I just love it. I love it. But what I don't do is get mad at her if she didn't make food that night, or if it's on the table at 6 p.m. And every once in a while, it's a treat. It's just a treat. Every once in a while, we eat, she'll make cookies or something. Let's say whatever it is, make cookies. And I've eaten too many. My wedding ring finger got too big, too many Krispy Kreme or something. So I've got to get it resized. I'm not Dora, just all that means. So anyway, it just reminds me of that with the cookies. So anyway, every once in a while she'll make cookies, and they'll come out of the oven. And maybe I'm sitting on the couch or something, and she'll come up and she'll feed me. Like, oh. Every day, Bennett. Do you have a marriage like that? That's all I'm saying. Every day, son. Now, every day. So she'll come up. I'm batting 100, all these divorces. So she'll come up and she'll sit there, give a cookie, and I'll bite, and oh, thank you, honey. She just right to being sweet. In that moment, I'm trying to give an extreme example because this is what happens. My point is, obviously, it's a treat. I'm not incapacitated. I can get my rear end off the couch and get my own cookies. I could do it. She's just treating me, and I receive it as a treat. That's great. The problem is if I received it as a needing to be met. Where are my cookies? I mean, it's 6:02. Do I need to remind you again? We get it twisted. We get it all mixed up. From morning to night, I am responsible for me. I'm responsible for my external needs and my internal needs. I am responsible for them. From when we married on June something, 1999, I'm kidding. That's right. I know exactly when it is. Until we're dead, I am responsible for my own external needs and internal needs. And if she chooses to meet them, it sure is a nice treat. I'll wash your car for you, sure. Oh, thank you. You're welcome. I'm not doing this all the time. Yes, you are. No, I'm not. It's just a treat. I just want to serve you. If you're blessed enough to be in a healthy Christian marriage, you're married to a person who wants to treat you. They want to treat you. Every single time, I'm just giving it, every single time Elaine makes a meal for me, she's treating me. She's treating, and I say treat, and I receive it as a treat because it's so sweet of her and kind, but she doesn't owe me that at all. Every time I serve her, every time I cut the grass or fix the car or whatever I'm doing or fix that thing that's broken at home or get her laptop better or fix that technical issue, and I know, okay, pay me my money, woman. It's just a treat. I could say to her, Jean, go YouTube it. Go figure it out yourself. Go hire a specialist. And she'd have to go, of course. Why did I even ask you? It's my need. No, she would. But it's just a treat. And I know I've got it twisted when I resent her when she doesn't do it. So the question is, do you resent your spouse when they don't come to rescue you from your own character deficiencies or your external needs? Are you mad at them? Do you take that for granted? Healthy Christian couples don't do that. They just really don't. So I just remind you, 2 key features of a healthy Christian family, of marriage that lasts a lifetime is you're committed to your spouse, not a feeling about your spouse. That's eros love. And you take full responsibility for your own internal and external healthy needs. You take full responsibility. At the very end of this movie, that you watch it on TV version, there's some inappropriate parts, but in general, it's a funny comedy called Stuck on You. And these guys are conjoined twins. One loves to act in the theater. The other twin, Matt Damon's character, hates it. He's scared to death, has panic attacks on stage. Well, the guy likes to act, makes it all the way to Hollywood. And he gets real big name, gets real big. Wherever he goes, of course, Matt Damon's character is stuck to him. He's a conjoined twin. And at the end of the movie, he says, Greg Kinnear's character, the other brother, says, you know, I'm to the surgery. We can get separated, and I can do my own acting career, so you don't have to be panicked all the time. And so the big deal, they finally do the operation, and they do exactly what would happen in the real world. They go through depression, terrible depression. For the first time in their life, one moves back to Maine, one's on the east and west coast. Depression, all of a sudden, the first time in their life, they miss each other. They finally have a reunion, get back together, good old brothers. At the very end of the movie, they're walking up the stage as one of the brothers is going to be on the stage again. He's walking up the stage, and they're connected again. And it's very unnerving because you know they had the surgery. Like, why are they connected again? In the same way, they're walking. And as soon as you get to the top of the stairs, it goes, zhip! There's Velcro they stuck on each other. So as they walk, it goes, break a leg, have a good time. And yeah, I'm a nerd, but as soon as it happened in the theater, I went, marriage. That's it. And people looked at me. I'm kidding. I didn't yell it out, but I did think it. That's it. That's it. They're 2 whole Independent people who meet their own needs, who choose to get connected. They're not sharing organs, not anymore. That's codependency. They're choosing to get connected. They're choosing to be with each other that way. To separate all the time is divorce. But healthy Christians don't do that. They get attached, but they know where one begins and one ends because they're responsible for their own needs. Let me say a quick prayer for us. We ask Lord Jesus this morning for that capacity to, and if we're married or if we want to get married, help us learn from what you taught us to focus on making up our minds. And one is to make up our mind to stay focused on the person and not the feelings. God, we know that our feelings can be right and they can be wrong, but what we do for a fact is feelings come and go. Help us stay focused on the vows we made, not feelings we have. Help us not be some animals driven by instinct, but people made in the image of God who have made up our minds to be committed. Secondly, Lord Jesus, please help us take responsibility for what you said we are responsible for, which is ourselves. Help us do that today and ask forgiveness from our spouse if we have been a real punk or mean or immature or a baby when they didn't come to our rescue and fix everything. Please help us be an adult and take ownership of what we do well and perhaps what we don't do well in our marriages, and then together be a safe place for each other as we continue to grow up. In the name of Jesus, we pray. Amen.